Hi, I'm Carlos, and I'm going to tell you a story about a real-life Ready Player One, but with gold.
Hi, I'm Adri, and I'm going to tell you a real life story about an orca who had a tail.
Hi, I'm Kimberly, and I'm going to tell you a real life story about a Muppet puppeteer who was recruited by the CIA.
What does this all have to do with the heavy metal gold? Find out in this episode of History Bluffs. Welcome to another episode of History Bluffs. It's where truth is stranger than fiction. And now I want to welcome to the show, it's your host, it's Alan!
Hey, welcome to History Bluffs, where truth is stranger than fiction. You just heard from our tech, Adam. How are you, Adam?
I'm great, Alan. I'm gold, solid gold. Let me tell
That's
you.
the way to be in this episode.
Oh boy.
We're all gold right
That's
now.
right.
That's awesome.
Wah,
I'm
wah.
glad we've
Okay,
got
true.
all of our historians here with their topics ready to go. But
Yeah.
you, the listener or the viewer, you might not be ready to go because you don't know those rules that we have on this episode. So, Adam, let's bring them up.
Let's do it. It's a game show, a comedy game show. And here's the rules of that game. Alan, tell the folks at home if they can't see.
Yes, historians are inspired by the topic. The true stories must be factual, but the crux of the story of the bluff must be fictional. And if you are watching this broadcast live, we ask that you please do not help the audience if you know who is telling the truth and who is bluffing.
All right. Sounds
it.
like that's it.
That's it. Although there are some more things that the audience should know. First of all,
Oh.
there's our Round Tracker 9000.
Oh, let's bring that up.
bring it
'Cause
up
we
right
have the technology to track rounds. There she
There.
be, Alan.
Look at that. That
There
tells us
she be.
who has gone in each round. And what you might be wondering about these rounds is what makes these rounds significant. Well, for one thing, the first round is 75 seconds. Second round is a full minute. And the third round is a mere 45 seconds. At the end of those three rounds, we will determine who is telling the truth and who is a history bluff.
There it is again. That word you say. It's the title of the show.
Exactly, that it is. And Adam, without further ado, I'd like to get started on the first round. What do you think?
Wow, let's do it. It's time for round number 1. And here we are. We know how to play the game, and we are in round 1, Alan.
That's right, we are. Carlos, you're at the top of the rock there, so I want you to start first.
Okay,
Here,
I'm
round
ready
one.
to gold.
There it is.
Adam, shoot the cannon.
All right, here we go. Your round starts now, Carlos.
I'm going to start my story today with a man, an interesting, intriguing man by the name of Forrest Fenn. This man was born in 1930. That's kind of part of the history part. Blah, 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 blah. Let's move forward to his life because most of that we don't really need to know. He got into the United States Air Force. He was a pilot. He obtained the rank of major. He was awarded the Silver Star. He flew a bunch of combat missions, 300 plus. Blah, 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 blah. He retired from the Air Force, and then he ran a gallery, the Aerosmith Fenn Gallery, with his partner Rex Aerosmith. Then that became the Fenn Galleries, which he operated with his wife Peggy in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He sold a variety of Native American artifacts, paintings, bronze sculptures, and other arts, including forged copies of some works. This gallery grossed $6 million a year. But in 1988, Forrest Fenn was diagnosed with cancer. He was given a prognosis that it was likely terminal. So do you know what he did? Did he have an existential crisis? Or did he create a treasure hunt? Spoiler, it's the latter.
Wow.
Okay.
Carlos, so much information. This guy named Forrest Bend was in the Air Force in the early
Forrest
50s.
Fenn.
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 And Fenn.
Men?
Fenn. F-E-N-N. Fenn.
Fenn. Fenn. And he had a friend named Rex Aerosmith. They had Native American paintings in this gallery that grossed a fortune. And then in 1988, when he was terminally diagnosed, he created a scavenger hunt. Kimberly, what do you think?
A scavenger hunt.
Okay, Kimberly, what do you say?
So far, I guess so good. Was waiting for that climactic. When does the gold come in? And the treasure hunt seems like it's coming. Sounds like an exciting guy. Yeah. So far, I want to know a little bit more.
Okay, Adri, what do you think?
I'm sensing a couple of red flags. There's a lot going on here, especially for a person that I've never heard of. There's a lot going on, and it's in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is like part of the gold hunt area. So I think it's a little bit too on the nose for round one. That's all I'm going to say so far.
Okay,
Too on the nose. Maybe there's too many facts here. Who knows?
I'm sorry, it's too accurate for you.
It's all right. It's history. History's in the name of the show.
Well, Adri, you've got your chance to bluff or buff right now.
Ready.
So let's hear what your story is after the cannon shot.
All right, so the following story takes place on May 18th, 2003. The main character, her name is Cheryl. She was in her early 20s, and she suffers from reflex sympathetic dystrophy syndrome, a particularly disabling condition that leaves a person with very limited mobility. One day, while she was out in a powered wheelchair, which is how she would, get around, she hit something in the sidewalk that tipped her wheelchair over, and she slid down a slope that was about 20 feet, steep, into a ditch, and she got stuck there. She was unable to move, trapped under a heavy wheelchair, and Cheryl quickly realized this situation is serious. Luckily, she had her 17-month-old golden retriever, who goes by the name Orca. She had him with her that day, and so she called for him, and he was still at the top. She called for him. He came down, and he tried to pull her out, or at least get the wheelchair off of her, and he just wasn't able to do that, even though he was 80 pounds, which is pretty big for a retriever. So she sent him on a mission to find someone to help. And we'll get back to that in just a little bit.
All right, let's hear our opinions from our other historians. Carlos, what do you think?
Well, it sounds like it's the tale of the indomitable spirit of a human being as they try to survive, if it's not the bluff. So we'll hold off for now. I want to believe that this golden retriever helped this person get out of a bind, but at the same time, the perfect way to try to distract someone is to say golden retriever, America's favorite dog. So we'll see.
Kimberly, what do you say?
It just seems a little too. She had the dog with her, and then the dog couldn't help her, but then maybe it did. And there's just something about how convenient it was with her, but it could do this thing. There's something about the golden retriever that doesn't with the fall, and I don't know what that is yet. But
that's okay. Yeah, I see that. Okay.
Okay. Well. Yeah. What we do see is, Kimberly, you haven't gone yet, so we're going to hear your story right now.
Okay. There was an actress named Louise Gold. She was an actress who was born in 1950. She was English. She did a lot of musical theater following her puppeteer career, but most people know her as one of the primary puppeteers from The Muppet Show. And she did several of the Muppet movies afterwards. A lot of the films, she had a big puppeteer career. But also around the 1970s, there was a lot of government intelligence claiming that Soviets, ESP and telekinesis or psychokinesis as alternate methods of things to weaponize. The 70s were wacky. And the CIA leaned into that, and they formed something called Project Stargate. Now, they funded this through their own research with the Stanford Research Institute in Menlo Park, California. And they knew at the time that indicated that 70% of Americans believed in paranormal phenomena. So this was not too far afield at the time. So they wanted to lean into that. So they started to recruit people with psychic gifts who could mind read and yes, basically. and they couldn't be obvious, so they had to look for someone and this actress who has lots of access to guests every week from all over the world seemed like an unassuming choice.
Louise Gold, Muppeteer, female Muppeteer. What do you say, Carlos?
Well, I say I love the Muppets, and I really wanted to believe Kimberly's story. And then she introduced the Stargate, which is a film and a TV show that I watched. So I'm very skeptical right now that the CIA in the late 20th century, but earlier than the film Stargate, would even know to think of the word Stargate. Especially when it's hard to translate from the ancient Egyptian, as we all know from watching the film Stargate. They mistook it and thought it was doorway until James Spader came in and made them look like fools by correcting it.
Yes.
Wow.
Makes sense. Yeah, Carlos, we're hearing that microphone every time you touch it, so.
Touch it more?
Yeah, please don't.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, can we just do that for the remainder of the show? I'll put a track down behind. It'll be great.
Adri, what do you think about the Muppeteer story?
I think as far as like a round one goes, everything adds up. Where I am blown away is realizing that James Spader is the guy from that movie, and thinking about how he is now. I'm like mind blown right now. That's crazy.
That's true. No, he's a
That
creepy
is
dude.
Wow, that's wild. That's all I got.
That early James Spader.
Yeah.
Grew
Okay,
up,
so
you filled out.
He sure
that?
did.
How's that tracker? Oh, look at that.
Hey,
That's a complete round one, Adam. What does that
Sure is.
mean?
that means, Alan, that it is time to go to round number 2. And here we are. Round number 2. The
Now-
middle of the show.
Our stories have to be no more than a full minute. Carlos, we want to hear more about this supposed Forrest Fenn and his proposed scavenger hunt.
Let's do it.
All
The
right.
floor is yours.
Okay, so he got the diagnosis with cancer. This inspired him. Other people that would break him, but this inspired him. He said, I'm gonna create a treasure. I'm gonna hide a treasure chest in an outdoor location with the purpose of creating a public search for. He also thought of using the location as his final resting place as well. However, he recovered. He recovered from the illness, but still, he hid a treasure. And in 2010, in a self-published memoir called The Thrill of the Chase memoir, it was a collection of short stories from his life, but one of the things he put in the memoir was a poem in a chapter called Golden Moor. This poem contained 9 clues that could lead the searcher to the chest. All right, and it contained gold nuggets, rare coins, jewelry, and gemstones. And a bunch of people went on this search. They had a community. We'll continue this later.
So he recovered from the cancer. That was the whole point of his little treasure hunt. And the assumption is there's still clues and still a treasure out there. Kimberly, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know why he would continue to have that after he found out he was better. Other than, I guess, morbid curiosity, I guess, works as a motivating factor. But yeah, I mean, if he was fine, why keep going?
Okay.
Good question. Adri, what do you say?
I vaguely recall this story, so I know at least part of it is true. But as we all know, the bluff can have their bluff be based on something that really happened. So I am on to you, sir.
Oh,
That's all I got.
I think you just validated part of my story is true, at least. I feel like you're helping me.
I know what
she
she's
is.
doing. I know what she's doing.
Also,
Adri's trying to throw Kimberly off the scent so she can accuse Carlos alone. I know how this trick works.
It wasn't
Yep,
Forrest
yep.
Fenn. It was Schmorris Schmen. I see your game.
Huzzah.
it's
Yes.
all made up except for nothing. Okay, so we've still got
Sorry I
a
didn't
couple more
include
historians.
Stargates in my story.
Need more
Well, next
Stargates.
time, think about that.
So, yeah.
Yes.
That's
Speaking
on
of
you.
thinking about, Adria, you got to think about your story because your
Oh,
time
okay.
is now to tell
Ready.
us.
Yes. Okay, so Cheryl is stuck down there. She sends the dog up for help. His first attempt was to get somebody that was passing by, but it was a failure. The guy wouldn't go, he wouldn't follow the dog, and assumed that Orca was a stray, so he was trying to get him by the collar and to take him home. It's important to note that assistant dogs are trained to follow, not lead. So they're not guide dogs. They're taught to react to the instructions that they're getting. This dog was so smart that he realized that this person was not picking up on his cues, that he kind of wiggled his way out of the collar and ran away from him. He ended up going back to Cheryl to see how she was doing. At this point, it had started to rain. It even hailed. So obviously the dog didn't know hypothermia was a consequence of that. But in reality, she could have died from hypothermia. And I'll wrap this up in round 3.
Wow. Orca, the golden retriever, had a failed attempt at bringing back help. Carlos, what do you think?
You know what? Gold retrievers don't fail. They succeed. They're amazing animals, and they always come through. If there's anything that television and movies have taught us, is that you can count on golden retrievers. So the suggestion of otherwise seems preposterous, quite frankly.
Yep, that's good. Yeah, golden retrievers,
Solid
America's
point.
dog.
Solid point.
Kimberly, is it
America's dog.
possible that a golden retriever failed in its mission?
Well, it may have failed initially, but dogs are super smart and awesome. And if in fact she had a dog, it seems like the dog, according to her story so far, is succeeding because he's putting a lot of connective things together to ultimately help this person out. So it doesn't really sound like this dog is failing. It sounds like he's on the track to helping this person. So this sounds true. I want to hear more.
It's not over yet. That's right. It's not over yet. And we know that this round isn't yet over because, Kimberly, you get to tell your story right after that cannon.
All right, where was I? Okay. So one night, Louise, after taping, she gets a call from someone claiming to have this really lucrative offer of additional money here with her puppeteering job on Muppets. Now, it was early in her career, and while it was steady work, it still wasn't super financially incentivizing because actor. So she's like, okay, I'll meet up with you. They meet up at this cafe that's right around the corner from where they recorded in Camden. And she agreed to a deal where every 2 weeks she would contact and she would tell them the latest gossip she'd heard backstage from the various guests. And every week they'd cut her a check for $2,000. Now, a particular interest, there was a few weeks away, was Shirley MacLaine was going to be a guest on the Muppet Show. And Shirley MacLaine was really into past lives and psychic connections and stuff. And they wanted to see if her claims were true. And they were wanting Louise to spy on that. Yeah.
Oh, that's it for that round. Okay,
All right.
Carlos, what do you think about Louise Gold as told by Kimberly?
Is Kimberly implying that the government asked a puppeteer to spy on an actress? Because if so, that is a preposterous story. That's more preposterous than the existence of a Stargate.
Counterpoint, McCarthyism.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Just because Julia Childs was used doesn't mean every B, C, D list actor in the biz was used as a spy.
Wait, Carlos, are you on the sly throwing credibility to Kimberly's story by bringing up Julia Child?
I guess so. I guess you got me there, Adam.
Oh, that's sneaky 4-dimensional chess.
You
Adrian,
don't
what do you
bring
say?
Julia. You don't bring Julia Childs into a conversation unless you
serious
mean
allegation.
business. That's a
Serious.
serious allegation.
Oh, I
Serious.
do.
Not thrown.
Oh,
One does not simply.
So I just have a quick question because your audio cut out for just a second. I just want to confirm. They were using her basically to get the tea, on what was
Yes.
going on set.
Yes.
Okay. That being said, sounds about right. Sounds about TMZ-ish. So I have no further questions.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Get the tea. I love
Get the
that.
tea.
I love that.
Get the tea that might have been
Carlos
spilled.
looks like he wants to crawl through the camera and strangle me.
Wow.
I just want to make that. If I disappear tonight, we
All
know
right.
why.
All right.
Carlos,
We know.
You're going to have
Alan.
to hold off till the end of the next round, which is the final round, right, Adam?
That's right. All the dots are full in round 2, which means we're going to our final round number 3. And here we are, Alan. This is it. This is the final round.
It is the final round. We're going to find out the wrap-up of this story. Let's first hear about the Forrest Fend treasure hunt. Did it happen? Did it not happen? I want to hear more, Carlos.
Here we go.
Okay, so the book and the story and the poem prompted a treasure hunt in the Rocky Mountains of New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. Okay, and the value of the treasure in the chest was estimated as to be as high as $2 million, depending on the appraisal. Fenn says it took him 2 trips to put it there. That it was in a 1,000-mile stretch of the mountains and at least 5,000 feet above sea level. Now, a community formed around the search of this. People, hunters, they created a community, they created tight bonds. Unfortunately, some people passed away, at least 5 people passed away, but it was found 10 years later in 2020. So he announced it 2010, it was found in 2020 by a doctor. So it's found and it's sold and it's gone.
Wow.
And he died 2 years later, or 2 months later.
Wow. A doctor found it in the year of COVID.
Yikes.
What do you say, Kimberly?
Oh, wow. I might have missed a quick detail. When did this initially start? When did he start the treasure hunt?
2010.
Okay, so over 10 years or 12 years. Or yeah, okay. That's kind of crazy that someone would find it that much later, but then again, 2020.
Yeah. Well, there was controversy. There are people that sued both the estate of Fenn, who had passed away like about 2 months later, as well as the person who found it, who tried to remain anonymous, but was going to be revealed. So they revealed themselves. They were like, Fenn moved it. I told him, one of the people like, I told him where I was going to look for it, and he moved it, so it's mine. And one person's like, the guy who found it, he stole my solve for the mystery in the poem, so it's mine. And there was a whole thing, but eventually it worked out where the guy who found it, and then he sold it, and sold it.
Wow. Okay, Adrian,
Just
what
answering
do you
the
think?
question, Adam.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Sounded like another round. I don't know.
No,
That's
just
it.
answering the question.
That's true. Nice cover. Nice cover. All right,
Adrian, what's
fair.
your take?
Again, the details sound familiar, but I don't remember 100% of it. I just think it's I don't know. It's very on the nose,
On the nose.
and that's a red flag for me.
I just love the concept of some people baked sourdough bread during the pandemic.
Yeah.
This dude went and dug up a buried treasure. Props.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasted my
Good for
pandemic
him.
time. All right.
Okay. Well, Adrian, let's give you a chance to wrap up your story. We
Okay.
want to hear whatever happened to this Cheryl with the mobility issues. She's still stuck in a ditch at this point. I want to find
Yes.
out what happens.
Here we go.
Okay. So 2 hours goes by and Orca is running all over the place trying to find somebody that will come with him. And eventually he did find somebody that went with him. It took 2 hours. When they found her, she was in bad shape. She was suffering from hypothermia. She went to the hospital. She did recover. However, the emergency service personnel all agreed that without a doubt, Cheryl would have died if it wasn't for Orca. The ditch was not visible, it was cold and rainy, and the path was not commonly used. Orca was handed a PDSA gold medal, Pro Dog silver medal. He was in TV, books, magazines. He got super, super famous, and one of the really cool things about him is he knew over 150 different commands. Like, this dog was an absolute genius, and he died at 12 years old, which is
Carlos.
old for a golden retriever.
Yeah.
All right. Carlos, what do you say?
Oh boy, who names a dog Orca? That's
Cheryl.
a whale's name. That's a SeaWorld name. Yes, if Cheryl exists. I've never heard of this dog. I've heard of Balto from like 190 whatever.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of Orca, but I've heard of Balto. So
Balto featured on this show a
not
couple times.
not passing the
Couple times.
sniff test here. Not passing the sniff test.
Okay, Carlos not
That's
giving
good.
Adri much faith here. Kimberly, what do you think?
Sniff.
I want to believe this good boy so much, and I'm just inclined to, because dogs can do some pretty incredible things that I wouldn't
Yes.
believe from people.
Yeah.
But
That's true.
I'm leaning toward believing.
Okay.
Leaning towards believing. Kimberly, good. Get a little endorsement there for Adri. Speaking of endorsement, let's endorse Kimberly to finish up her story about the Muppeteer Louise Gold.
Here we go.
Okay, so at the Shirley MacLaine episode, Louise Gold overheard Shirley MacLaine in her room apparently talking to someone named Svetlana, and so she seemed very upset, and she kept saying, "No, we are not prepared. We are not prepared." And so she peeked in, and it turned out she wasn't talking to anybody that she could see, and so she was very concerned about this. She went and she contacted the CIA contact and let him know that the what they'd heard, and they seemed very, very concerned. And they said, "Hey, don't panic. We're going to be in contact with you within 36 hours. Just stay by the phone." And she waited and waited, and they never showed up. They just never showed up. Nothing ever happened on the show. They just vanished. And over the next few weeks, she let her guard down, and that was it, pretty much. Eventually, Project Stargate disbanded, and she wrote about it in her autobiography.
So nothing happened. What a story. Carlos, what do you say?
Something did happen. We've been bluffed, Alan. That's what happened. To buy that the CIA was concerned about Shirley MacLaine because she's psychic and talking to ghost Russians, I think. I don't know. Sounds sus. Not real. Sounds fake.
We're not sure. Adri,
Probably
what is your
bluff.
take?
I'm curious as to why they would hire her for the gossip, and then when she calls them and says, "Hey, I've got something," then they don't show up. That just doesn't add up for me. Because that's all I'll say.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
there's some red flags for sure.
there are some red flags. That's all of our stories. So now
There we go.
we got to get some votes here. And if you, the audience, want to chime in, that's cool. But we're going to hear from our historians, starting with Carlos. Carlos, what's your take? Who do you think is telling the truth, and who is bluffing?
Oh boy. The puppet Muppet Shirley MacLaine story is so crazy you think it's true. And the Golden Retriever story is so straightforward. Oh, I'm sorry that you think. I'm gonna go with the puppet story. I think that's balder crap. I call
All
balder
right.
crap on that.
The Muppet
Okay.
CIA informant, not real.
You
according to
saying
Carlos.
it. You just saying it makes it sound like
Does sound like a little absurd.
That is exactly the kind of history we go for in this
It's an
show.
elevator pitch meeting.
Maybe it's stranger than fiction, Carlos.
Muppets
Maybe
and
Kimberly
CIA.
read this in this woman's biography. Kimberly, what do you say? Who do you think is telling the truth and who's not?
At first, I wasn't buying the dog thing because there's just too many coincidences. But I feel like the detail to the dogs finding the person and getting the people and being awarded the stuff tracks. I've heard that several times about other creatures, and I totally believe it to be true. Plus, I'm just biased where I like animals more than people, and I want it to be true. So I'm going to call Carlos as the bluff.
Carlos is the bluff, according to Kimberly. According
Treasure
to
hunt
Carlos.
thing after he was already fine just didn't add up for me.
So we've got a one-on-one. Carlos and Kimberly don't believe each other. Adri, you could basically break this tie right now. What do you think?
Well, That's tough because for Carlos, I know half of his story. Basically, I heard about the gold thing, but everything before that, I never heard. I didn't know he was from New Mexico. I didn't know he ran a gallery or he was a pilot. All of those things could be bluffs. On the other end, I've never heard anything of Kimberly's story. So it's 50-50 for me. I'm just going to go with my gut and say that Carlos is the bluff.
So it's 2 votes for Carlos. Adrian, Kim do not believe you, Carlos. Carlos does not believe Kimberly, but that means that if Adri is bluffing, she got away this week scot-free, and only our
Free of Scots.
Adam knows for sure.
That's right. I am the only one. So it is that time, Alan. I'm going to have you step off of our virtual stage, and I'll line up the potential bluffers. Who was the bluff for this episode about gold? Was it Carlos? Was it Adri? Or was it Kimberly? Prepare to find out. Your bluff for this episode was Kimberly.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah!
Carlos
Hey.
figured it
Got
out.
you, sucker!
All right, that's it. Well done, Carlos. You
That's
picked
a
it out.
double win. I got a vote to vote for me, and I picked the right person.
There you go.
Yeah!
I think he's right.
Well
he gets
done.
the snitch.
Well
I think he
well
won
done.
that.
I have to,
I got
I
that
have to
snitch.
say, you called BS on the part of the story that was actually true.
What?
In the
Okay.
70s, in the 70s, they did have something called Operation Stargate, where
Really?
they did think the Soviets were using ESP and all this wacky stuff. And like our government makes choices sometimes, and they straight up self-funded a thing in California. So the
Wow.
Oh my God.
Starting and the name
Was-
Stargate was legit.
Was there any celebrities named in the use of it?
I don't think so. Not that
Okay.
I found. I just
Okay.
knew that that'd be a fun thing to happen. So,
yeah.
so,
Elvis is
Hey,
still
wait.
a part of it,
I mean, they've hired.
I assume.
Oh my gosh! Like there was the thing with Og a long time ago was a spy for other too. So it's not unprecedented fully, but as far
Julia
as I'm-
Childs was a spy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There, well, see, bringing up
There
the trivia
she
again.
And
But speaking of interesting things, that means Carlos's story was real. There was a $2 million treasure hunt that was found in
Wow.
2020, and that
crazy.
this golden retriever really did help its master Cheryl out of a ditch.
I believed in Orca. I did.
correct. Yeah.
Thank you, Orca.
Well,
He was
I mean,
a real
I knew,
dog.
you know.
And he could do really amazing things. He was highly, highly intelligent.
Good
Very
dog.
cool.
Yeah.
All
He's a
right,
good
well,
boy.
Adam, that's all the time we have for today.
It is Alan. That is the show. Alan, thank you so much for corralling these masters of history. We want to thank Carlos and Kimberly and Adri for their contributions to our knowledge. This has been History Bluffs. We are here every week live streaming. Check us out on TikTok and YouTube and where you get your audio podcasts. We're there. We'll see you then.